Day 706. Friday, July 25th. Esther 7. Esther 7 1-10 NKJV. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther. And on the second day, at the banquet of wine, the king again said to Esther, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted you. And what is your request up to half the kingdom? It shall be done." Then Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss." So King Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, "Who is he, and where is he, who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing?" And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine, and went into the palace garden. But Haman stood before Queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman had fallen across the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, "Will he also assault the queen while I am in the house?" As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, the gallows, 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. Daily Deep Dive. The UCG reading plan states, at Esther's second banquet, the king again asks her what this is really all about, promising to grant her request, verses 1-2. This time she makes her impassioned plea for her own life and that of her people, verses 3-4. From the king's response in verse 5, it may be that she did not yet reveal the identity of her people, for had she done so, and if he were aware that the Jews were slated for destruction, which seems likely on some level despite his honoring of Mordecai, he wouldn't have wondered who was paying for their eradication, having himself been complicit in Haman's decree. Then in verse 6, she lets the hammer drop. The enemy is Haman. It is this statement that actually reveals Esther as a Jew. The king is stunned and furious. He storms outside, dazed, full of emotional turmoil and trying to think. He may well have been unhappy with Esther herself for hiding her nationality from him for all this time. And had not Haman made a good case against those deserving execution? Was he not a valued, trusted advisor? Yet perhaps Haman was the evil, wicked person the queen claimed after all. And look at what he had allowed this man to talk him into. The wise and mighty Xerxes had let someone pull the wool over his eyes, making a fool of him. It was just too much to take in all at once. The terror-stricken Haman runs over to Esther, pleading for his life. When the king returns, he finds Haman draped over the queen's couch in a compromising position. Presumably he was grasping at her with a desire to implore her favor. The king, on discovering this outrageous situation, wondered aloud if Haman intended to ravage the queen. The Persians had strict rules about contact with the harem by any male other than the king. The eunuchs were the only persons who had access to the rooms of these women. Haman was in danger merely by being near her. This sight enraged the King Nelson Study Bible. Note on verse 8. Perhaps the king saw Haman as attempting through such an assault to force her to retract her accusation against him. In any case, it was all over for Haman the Agagite. As the king spoke, the account says that they covered Haman's face, verse 8, evidently referring to the eunuchs mentioned in the next verse. We are not told whether they'd been present the whole time or came in because of the commotion. The king's angry words were a sentence of death. Although there is no evidence that it was a Persian custom to cover the face of a condemned criminal before he was led away to execution, that was probably its meaning here. Expositors, note on verse 8. In verse 9, Harbona, mentioned near the beginning of the book as one of the eunuchs sent to summon Queen Vashti, Esther 1:10, speaks up about Haman's just-built scaffolding meant for Mordecai, a man the king had honored the previous day for saving his life. The poetic justice demanded was all too clear. Haman was sentenced to the same grim fate he had planned for Mordecai, Esther 7:9-10, and